Hi, I'm Hilary and welcome to this latest podcast from Adept English, aimed at increasing your understanding and your fluency in spoken English and making your English automatic. For more information, visit our website at adeptenglish.com.
Hi, I'm Hilary and welcome to Adept English and to this particular podcast. Swings and Roundabouts, I've called it. Now, first a little bit about what the podcasts are for and what they're hopefully doing in terms of helping you to improve your spoken English language and your English language understanding. Now, the podcasts, in part, are going along with the principle of nothing but English. So if you've done the 7 rules of Adept English, you'll remember that Rule 6 is nothing but English. And the point of this is that listening to lots and lots of spoken English will help you to train your ear so that you'll get used to picking out the sounds and the phrases and they'll gradually become very familiar to you. It's also a way of you learning new vocabulary. So principle or rule 5 of Adept English is learning vocabulary in context. So it gets you away from translating. It gets you away from the habit of learning a new word and immediately translating it into the word in your own language. It also takes you away from reaching for the dictionary all the time. Now, so in this podcast, lots of me talking, lots of words that you'll be familiar with, and then hopefully some words which you may not know in each podcast as well. And if you keep listening to lots and lots of spoken English, cumulatively, you will build up your English vocabulary and your comprehension will improve. It also gives you a little bit of an experience of what the courses are going to be like. So commonly in the courses there will be an article on a particular subject at the start of each section, and I'd suggest you listen to that a number of times, and then it will be followed by a section called vocabulary, which will be me talking through the meaning of the words in the article at the start of the section. So ideally you learn new vocabulary and you get comfortable with English grammar automatically through listening, through assimilating, through hearing it rather than learning it the hard way from a textbook. And this way of learning means that the grammar and the vocabulary and the comprehension is automatic, so that when you're in conversation you don't really have to think about it, it's just there. So, we come to the phrase in English, swings and roundabouts. Now, just to put this in context, you may hear someone say, "Oh, it makes no difference, it's swings and roundabouts." What are they trying to say here? What does it mean? Well, broadly speaking, the meaning here, the sense here is that there are 2 choices, 2 options, 2 things to choose from. And although there may be good points about one option, there are also equally, but usually slightly different, good points about the other option too. So there are 2 different choices, but it isn't that one is massively better than the other. They both have a good side. So where does it come from? Well, you may realise that it refers to a children's playground. So a swing, you perhaps have a different word for this in your language, but basically it's a seat. It might be a piece of wood for a child to sit on, and attached to the piece of wood at each side are ropes or chains which hold it, and therefore you can swing it, and a child can sit on and be swung backwards and forwards. So it sort of gives the child a ride. Sometimes adults like them too. And roundabouts, well, you may have come across that term to mean a roundabout in the road, which you might come across when driving. If you're used to driving in the US, in America, you'll find that we're very fond of roundabouts in Britain. They don't have as many in America. And from what I know of the rest of Europe, they seem to quite like roundabouts as well. So the roundabouts when you're driving in Britain, you'll perhaps remember because, of course, we drive on the left, so you have to go the opposite way round the roundabout to how probably you would in your own country. But in swings and roundabouts, we're not talking about these kind of roundabouts. The ones I'm talking about in this term are, again, the ones you'll find on the children's playground. You don't see them so much anymore in the UK, but it's basically a large circular seat, probably with some bars on it to hang on to, and you can spin it round and round. So the meaning of the expression is that there are swings to play on, and there are roundabouts to play on. Both have merit, and one isn't better than the other. Now, there's another phrase which is quite similar. This one is 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. This has quite a similar meaning, slightly different nuance perhaps sometimes. Nuance is a word we use to describe meaning that's just a little different, just subtly means something slightly different, a different feel. So again, you might say 6 of one and half a dozen of the other when you're faced with two options or two choices. To understand this phrase, you need to know what a dozen is. This is a gloriously old-fashioned word which is probably associated with old imperial measurements. So the system of measuring which we had in the UK, which was in place before the decimal system, so the metric system, the one that they use in Europe. Now, a dozen means 12 of something. So if you said, 5 dozen of them, that would mean 60. In the UK, eggs tend to be sold by the dozen or the half dozen even now. So that really is a remnant of this old imperial measuring system. You might also come across the expression a baker's dozen, which would actually mean 13, not 12. This is because if you're going to bake a dozen buns or a dozen jam tarts, it makes sense to bake an extra one so that you can have a taste of what you've made and still have a dozen to sell. So a baker's dozen is 13 and an ordinary dozen is 12. So 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, you've worked it out, actually it's the same, both are 6. So the meaning is, again, faced with a choice, you might say swings and roundabouts, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. This second phrase has a slightly different meaning, however. While swings and roundabouts are perhaps both positive, both have their merits, you might use 6 of one and half a dozen of the other to mean something negative, to have a negative nuance as well. So, for example, if a couple were arguing and falling out a lot, someone might say, "Oh no, is he being difficult again?" And the other person might say, "No, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other," meaning that no, the wife is also being difficult, they're as bad as each other. Hope that clarifies it. That's probably enough for now. Check out our website at adeptenglish.com, and don't forget, if you haven't already, have a look at the 7 Rules of Adept English, our free course. Take care, speak to you soon, bye for now.
And there you are, that's the end of this podcast. Don't forget to visit our website at adeptenglish.com. There you'll find other podcasts, interesting articles and lessons in English language. Also, you can visit our Facebook page where you can ask questions and practice your English. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Have a lovely day and see you again soon.